And aloha, everyone who's here. My name is Kalalea Herrod, and this is my senior capstone proposal presentation. And it's emanating in empathy, how storytelling and visual narratives challenge racial and social injustice. So let me just say a few things about myself. I'm a four-year student from KCC. And I graduated from Kawaikini Hawaiian Public Charter School, and my major is creative media. And I like to do animation, storytelling, filmmaking, and video editing, and whatever her involves all of that. And even character designing. And so right now I'm here to talk about my plans for the senior capstone project, my thesis statement, and the object slash rationale of the research, and address the significance of my project, like with my research. So let's begin. So this is my thesis statement. Well, it took me a while to redo it. Animation and storytelling can confront racial and social injustice by immersing audiences in emotionally grounded, culturally specific narratives that reduce defensiveness. It can build empathy and help viewers understand marginalized experiences. However, their impact only works when creators use ethical, community-centered approaches that avoid stereotypes and, of course, misinformation. And from what I found out, here's what I found so objective about my research. So I wanted to understand how animation influences people emotionally and socially. Yeah, and I was interested in why some animated stories create empathy while others reinforce harmful stereotypes. So my goal was to explore how animation can be used responsibly to address racial and social injustice. So this research helped set the foundation for my own animated capstone story, which centers on a teen Mahu protagonist navigating identity, discrimination, and community healing. So here's the plan. So what will I deliver? So it took me a while. So decided to choose a short animated film slash story featuring the protagonist. As I decided, her name would be Kapualani Mahina, a teenage Mahu. So the story draws from my research on empathy building, narrative persuasion, and ethical representation. And the animation will highlight themes like cultural identity, bullying, belonging, and the impact of community storytelling. So, why this direction fits my research? Well, my research shows that personal, character driven narratives are highly effective in reducing defensiveness and increasing empathy. So, the animation will apply those findings directly by using culturally grounded storytelling and representation. Now, here are a few, maybe just a couple significance. And I hope you don't mind. I made a few capstone notes. What's for me? And so, well, animation has always shaped how audiences see different cultures, identities, and communities. So my research shows that stories have the power to reduce defensiveness, build empathy, and help audience and understand experiences that are different from their own. But when representation is inaccurate or stereotypical, animation can also reinforce discrimination and social harm from what I've seen. So this is why my project matters. So my animated short uses culturally grounded storytelling to highlight a teen Mahu character, someone often misrepresented or completely erased in mainstream animation. Presenting Kapualani's experiences authentically helps challenge harmful assumptions, encourages empathy, and creates space for more inclusive conversations in Hawaii and, of course, beyond. And for the future implications, this project can encourage more local creators to tell stories rooted in Hawaii, in Hawaiian culture and identity, of course. It may also support better representation for the LGBTQIA community and indigenous characters in animation by showing how thoughtful, research driven storytelling can make a real difference. the significance, the second one, and so my research shows that most animated media still lacks indigenous, queer, and gender diverse characters. There's I'm not listing, just listing a few examples like the Owl House and Lilo and Stitch. It's, for example, like Bleakley. So my project addresses this gap by offering a story that centers a Mahu teen in a respectful, culturally inaccurate way. This matters because media strongly shapes how young people understand gender identity and belonging. So this my story reflects both cultural tradition and real modern challenges faced by queer youth in Hawaii, making it meaningful for educators, community programs, and young audiences, of course. This capstone also shows how academic research can inform creative practice, specifically how animation theory, psychology, and social justice research can shape ethical storytelling. So, and another future implication, my project models how creative media students can build animation grounded in empathy rather than stereotype. Now, this approach could be expanded into longer stories, workshops, or educational resources promoting inclusion and media literacy. This is the data that I found. Actually, the one on the right I made myself. So, apologies for me if it lacks anything. But what I found in my research is that 90%, and if you notice, the yellow is the not indigenous slash LGBT, like representation of lead characters in animated media. So 90% of animated media leads are not indigenous or LGBTQ he2 who while how as you can see here the green one indigenous LGBT characters hers are just to 10%. And whilst in this data one, and social justice is one of the three most important aspects in life, I've only 2020 through 2024 as of June 2024 by quarter. So what I found in my research is that it shows that emotional storytelling helps audiences lower and engage with difficult social issues. Now, these data points justify choosing an animated short as my deliverable and show why representation matters. Sorry, apologies for this. I tried finding an actual data point for this, but I couldn't find anything. So, a data chart. All right, so I had to make my own. Anywho, well, let's just move on. The target audience. So I actually had a few target audience in mind, like the LGBT and Mahu youth, educators, and of course the local Hawaiian community. But then I thought of who else? Like since my character is a Mahu teen, I thought of the kids, the teens, young adults, and the new generation. So, if you're wondering why they matter, so the new generation is growing up in a world where identity, culture, and social justice are major conversations. Young people are directly affected by bullying, stereotypes, and misinformation. So, stories that promote empathy can make a real difference in how they understand themselves and others. They are also the audience who will shape future attitudes and communities. This is how animation speaks to them. So, animation is one of the most powerful mediums for young audiences because it feels familiar, creative, and emotionally engaging. And teens connect easily with animated characters, symbolism, and visuals, which helps lower defensiveness and make difficult topics easier to talk about. Animation can tell a serious story in a way that still feels approachable and relatable. Oh, now my goal is to create an animated story, as I mentioned before, that helps the new generation understand Mahu identity with respect and empathy. In short, I want young viewers to feel seen, supported, and encouraged to challenge stereotypes instead of repeating them. By reaching them early, the film can inspire more inclusive attitudes and spark healthier conversations about identity and belonging. Now, this is my proposed solution. So, my animated short offers an empathy-centered story about Kapualani Mahina, a teen mahu navigating discrimination, cultural shame, and self-acceptance. Now, instead of lecturing the audience about injustice, the film uses his emotional storytelling backed by academic research to help viewers understand her experiences on a human level. Now, it also contributes to study on ethical representation in animation, applies research from media psychology, cultural studies, and narrative theory. It creates a modern example of indigenous LGBT storytelling in animation, a field where a representation is still limited. And it encourages audiences to recognize how stories influence beliefs, empathy, and social attitudes. Now, this project directly addresses the problem of misrepresentation by offering a culturally accurate, research-driven alternative. Now, this is my preparation, and that took maybe like a month to work on. So well, for the pre-production, I'm planning to write the script and outline the story. I'll design the character, especially more. First, I'll do Kapualani though, and I figure out how the world should look, like colors, locations, styles, etc., and draw the board to map out each scene, and of course create an animated, which is basically a rough video made from storyboard. For the production, and I was thinking of doing like animating the main movements of each scene, clean up the drawings and make the animation smoother. And of course, create the backgrounds, record the voices and add early sound, and refine the animation so it flows well. And then here come the post production, and I add color, lighting, and any effects, and the final sounds, music, voices, and other audio effects, and edit and put everything together. And I'll export the final video for the capstone showcase. Here are some deliverables and some example images that I've decided to do. So, what will I turn in for my so this is two examples, like a finished animated short film starring Kapualani Mahina, and then a short artist statement explaining the research behind the story. Yeah. And here's another deliverable, a production notebook. I decided to do a production notebook, that shows my process, to keep me on schedule. And then and here's the last one. And a couple examples. It was a final presentation where I explain my project and show my work. And of course, it is as I put optional poster, like a simple poster or promotional image for the film. This is an example. That image below is an example of another short film I worked on. And anyways, mahalo. Are there any questions?